live, whoever you love, and whatever you believe. My name is John Russo, and this is Stranded in Centerfield. The presidential pardon power is set forth in Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution. The language is broad and simple. The president can, and I quote, grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. The language does not expressly forbid the president from pardoning himself. However, in August of 1974, just as Richard Nixon was on the verge of resigning the presidency because of his role as an unindicted co-conspirator in the Watergate scandal, the Department of Justice issued an opinion on the issue of a president trying to pardon himself. The Justice Department, very reasonably and very logically, concluded that a self-pardon would violate a fundamental rule of Anglo-American law, the idea that no one can be the judge of their own case. Of course, if he were set upon pardoning himself, President Donald Trump would not be deterred by a mere Justice Department opinion from almost half a century ago. But I don't think President Trump is going to pardon himself for two major reasons. First, both American case law and the rationale that President Gerald Ford gave to Congress when he controversially pardoned Richard Nixon suggest that a pardon must be accepted by the person being pardoned as the equivalent of a confession of guilt. I don't see Donald Trump confessing even to eating a beef jerky on a Friday during Lent, let alone admitting that he might have done anything wrong as president. In fact, in confession, he would have told the priest that it was a perfect beef jerky. Second, while President Nixon's pardon sparked widespread outrage that he had gotten away with something, the judgment of history has been harshly otherwise. Richard Nixon didn't get away with anything. For the rest of his life, Richard Nixon didn't for a single minute escape the knowledge that most of his fellow Americans viewed him as a failure and probably as a crook. Notwithstanding his obsessive and tireless efforts until his death to redeem his reputation as a policy analyst, Richard Nixon was finished as a force in American politics. President Donald Trump will never willingly sideline himself in this way. To me, the more interesting question is whether President-elect Biden should offer Donald Trump a pardon. Consider the following. In American courts, criminal laws are interpreted very narrowly. A defendant gets the benefit of every doubt, and a conviction can only be had against the defendant if a jury believes unanimously that the prosecution has proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. This is why someone like O.J. Simpson can be acquitted by a criminal jury on a murder charge, even though a civil jury later on found that, more likely than not, he viciously murdered Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. At the same time as we have narrow criminal law, the last 100 years have seen a tremendous expansion in the powers of the presidency, especially since the Cold War era and after the 9/11 attacks. Our courts have consistently ruled for wide presidential discretion and power whenever the scope of that power was challenged. Now, some of President Trump's actions in the White House may, according to many people, have crossed the line into the realm of the criminal. Obstructing the Mueller investigation, trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to investigate a political opponent, the use of his hotel properties for payola from foreign governments are just three of the most commonly cited allegations. But when broad 21st century presidential discretion and authority meet up with the very high bar for conviction of a crime in criminal law, well, it would be highly doubtful that Donald Trump would ever see the inside of a prison cell for anything he did while he was the president. Now, in the past month alone, Donald Trump's fantasy narrative about a stolen election has allowed him to personally monetize the devotion of his supporters to the tune of over $200 million. The prosecution of Donald Trump by the federal government would be the greatest bonanza his enemies could ever give him. It would give him the ability to stay front and center in the news cycle. It would allow him to continue to grift money from his most ardent supporters for the foreseeable future. And most importantly, it would permit him to present himself in the light that he most cherishes, as a victim and as a martyr. A president like Joe Biden coming into office can only pardon regarding federal crimes. So a pardon of Donald Trump on the federal crimes would not stop the dozens of civil cases that are being brought against him by all the women who have accused him of sexual improprieties and all the business associates that he had wronged before he was president. And a pardon from a President Biden would not protect Donald Trump from prosecutors in New York City and New York State who are pursuing him for both bank fraud and tax evasion, again, committed outside of his role as president. So should Joe Biden pardon Donald Trump? All things considered, he should not. Donald Trump knows that if he accepts such a pardon, he will have admitted guilt. And therefore, I believe that Donald Trump would not only refuse a pardon because he will contend he had done nothing wrong, but he would then dare President Biden to prove otherwise. At that point, President Biden would be in a very difficult box, because if the Justice Department proceeds with cases against Donald Trump, it plays into the idea that Donald Trump is being martyred. And if they don't proceed, then Donald Trump is effectively exonerated. Joe Biden would serve the nation's short-term needs best if he avoided any entanglement at all with Donald Trump. You know, both Donald Trump supporters and those who hate him have given the man way too much credit for astute political strategy. His unhinged narratives over the past month suggest that, left to his own devices and left to the passage of time, Donald Trump will marginalize himself. Finally, and most important of all, our nation's long-term interests and the health of our democracy lie in avoiding executive actions that would accelerate the very dangerous trend toward physical and political violence that we've seen rise up in the past 5 years and that are encapsulated in the phrase, "Lock him up." That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Please leave your civil comments and suggestions below. This is John Russo saying, I'm not stranded, and neither are you. There are millions of us Americans standing together here in Centerfield. Until next week.